Well, good morning, everybody. Hello, Pacific Northwest. Benny, good morning, lovely.
Top of the morning to you, Soup?
Did I hear? Oh, was that just fuzzies in the background?
Probably.
Okay, we're just going to roll with fuzzies. Fuzzies, how's the Pacific Northwest?
It's pretty good. Sun's kind of peeking through. It's going to shade up a little bit later. We got a little wind coming in, but everyone just be safe out there.
Be safe. Mind your P's and Q's. We are live in the Pacific Northwest on AM 1150. We are also goofing off on YouTube. So if you want to join us over there, all you got to do is just pop online. Internationally, I know we've got Sweden, we got Mexico, we got Switzerland. Hello. I love you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. And of course, for the podcast world, you can go to iTunes and SoundCloud and all that good juiciness. And if you'd like a copy of the show and some free goodies that I offer, of course, sign up for the newsletter, get on the list. And that's at Sue Lundquist. Well, wait a minute, www.SueLundquist.com/newsletter. I almost forgot what I was saying. My brain is still trying to catch up with me today, or it's my body. I'm not quite sure what's happening. I need to go sweat. That's it. Amanda and I were talking about that. We need to go sweat and get the yayas out. What are we talking about today? Well, we are going to talk to Amanda. See, there goes the last name, Benny.
It's Monnier. No worries.
Monnier. I know, Benny.
It's like the French, you know?
I know.
You might remember it now. Eh?
I know this. Yes. Well, we're going to talk about overcoming oneself. We're going to talk about fears. We're going to talk about self-sabotage. We're going to talk about mindset. We're going to talk about law enforcement to energy healer. That right there got me pretty curious and excited because that's a complete contrast. And of course, I love the contrasts. I love those conversations and educating. So Amanda joins us. And she's got quite a bit going on, guys. And we're going to talk about energy. We're going to talk about mindset because you guys know I love a good mindset conversation and getting us over our fears and our limiting beliefs and all that juiciness. Let me give you a little background about Amanda, and then we're going to bring her on so you guys can feel her energy and get to know her personally. So Amanda is an energy healer and a mindset coach. She is in California currently, and she knows she was put on this earth to support people in waking up, remembering who they are. Amanda empowers her clients and helps them heal from the inside out, break ancestral patterns. Ooh, that's going to be a juicy conversation. And shift into the fullest embodiment of who they are on a soul level. It's a juicy soul conversation today. Hi. Welcome, Amanda.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very happy to be here this morning with you guys.
Yay. Yes. Okay. So of course I did the bio, short and sweet. We want to get to know you. Talk to us about your backstory, how you went from law enforcement to energy healing, to yoga, to mind, body, all of this yummy stuff. I'm going to let you take the lead.
Yeah, it's been an interesting last about 7 years. I was in law enforcement for about 6 years. It was when I first started, I was a probation officer. So when I first started, I was like, oh, this is the career. I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. Like I loved it. And a couple years in, I had a spiritual awakening, and I just started questioning everything that I was ever told. I was just like, okay, even when I was a little girl, I was like, there's just got to be more to life. There's something that I'm not being told that I could just feel it like within. I was like, there's just something more than like the day-to-day monotony that everybody participates in. And like, there's just something more expansive out there. And I couldn't quite put my finger on it because I was never really, it wasn't like fostered as like you go within and you follow your passion and all those sorts of things.
You go in and it can be scary and there's lots of things in there, but do it anyways.
Oh yes, absolutely. So so I had, it actually stemmed from a really painful breakup and had this spiritual awakening. And so I just started, I started looking for all the things, books and courses, like anything I could get my hands on where I could get some answers of like what was going on. Why was all this stuff coming up within me? Why was I feeling all this pain? How could I shift it? And so it just started this journey for me it was like kind of this external search that turned inward. And then I just started kind of to understand things a little bit more. at a level of, heart and soul alignment. And we can maybe get into that a little bit later, and just kind of, how I found it to be just so powerful in my life. And I ended up leaving my career in law enforcement. I quit, and long story short, there were some twists and turns along the way, but I sold my home. I moved from the city that I've lived in my whole life down to Southern California, because I'd always just felt drawn to this area, Orange County area. So I moved and I started my business, and it's just been like my whole life has changed. And it's just been so interesting to see how I've been able to co-create that with God, with the universe. And it's just been, it hasn't all been perfect and sunshines and, rainbows and things, but I wouldn't have it any other way. That's for sure.
Oh my gosh, totally. Yeah. And let's have that conversation about change and evolution. And I like the language that you use, heart and soul alignment. That's beautiful. And I know when, and the audience knows this, when I don't want any more grizzly bears, let's do it in butterflies. And I make the agreement with the universe. Actually, I call it GUS, God, universe, source, spirit, whatever you want to call it.
I love that. Because we all use different things to label the same thing, right? Humans love to label stuff.
Yeah. The label. And it's, for me, it's just an adjective to describe, so people know, there's such an emotional charge when you use specific words. I'm not. It could be purple chopsticks. If you want to believe in that, we're good to go. Where I was going with this is having the conversation. Let's walk through that change, because there's a lot of change happening in the world right now. How can we encourage and keep people strong and full of their, redefining their willpower, right?
Yeah. So you are correct. There's so much going on. And I can even speak from this past month. October was a very, very challenging month for a lot of people, myself included.
Ditto.
And so it's like the way that I've come to understand it, from the guidance that's been shown to me and from my experience, is what's happening right now on the planet is all the density, all the lies are coming to the surface right now. And so this is happening at a collective level as well as an individual level. So, people can refer to it as a collective dark night of the soul, whatever resonates, but it's happening on both of those levels. And if everything on our external is just a reflection of what's going on the inside, it's just, we can look at it in a more empowered way. And so for me last month, I'm like, and I've been doing, my healing work for about 7 years now. And I don't think there was a day where I didn't cry. And the one thing that I have learned through all of this is, because sometimes I'm like, it's like all these layers and all these stories and all these illusions and the identity structures that we've lived with for so long that aren't actually truly our essence, is what's the stuff that's coming up. And that's why things feel so uncomfortable right now. And so, to answer your question, the suggestion I would give is to allow the stuff to come up that's coming up, and to acknowledge it. And sometimes that's so simple that that simple thing is what actually removes that charge. Because when we neutralize these dense, heavy emotions and these things going on, because again, if it's like we're looking at something on the outside and it's activating something within us, or it's triggering us, if it's activating something with you, it's in your body. And that thing on the outside is just simply showing you an aspect of what you have going on the inside. And it doesn't have to be right or wrong. It's just what's coming up. And so when we can see it from a place of love and compassion, like we would treat a child, we can move through these things in a different way, rather than fighting against them or forcing something to happen, or where we're still kind of not acknowledging the lie, the thing that isn't actually us, because this journey really is just about a remembrance of who we are at a heart and soul level, like as that divine being, as our true essence. And that's just kind of how it's been shown to me, and how I've been able to kind of navigate this time a little bit easier, and just allow, because emotions are just moving energy. So we're conditioned to be so afraid, and myself included in the past. Like, I'm like, I didn't want to see that stuff because it was so painful. But the way that we can move through it and release it is by just simply allowing what is showing up in the present moment and just moving through that rather than trying to fight it.
Oh, love it. Yes, you're speaking my language, sister. Speaking my language. Audience, did you guys hear that? So there's emotions and things that come up, and we've had this conversation before, that allowing them, and first even backing up, trusting within yourself of that vulnerability and creating that space for you. And if there's people around you that you don't feel safe, don't be doing that with those people, right? Doing that, meaning releasing those energies, because there could be judgment, there could be all kinds of other emotions and energetic frequencies and entanglements that are happening there. And radical acceptance, really take an honest awareness to what's happening in your life. And like you were talking about, Amanda, just releasing the energies, AKA the emotions that are coming up. Fears like crying. Oh God, last month was crazy for me.
Yes.
I felt like I had the weight of everything on me, literally physically, because I'm pretty fit and my energy is pretty good. It was so thick, so dense. And I'm just like a mud thing. It was so crazy. And I'm still shaking it off.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you. I feel it too.
I'm like, and we could have this conversation too. October and November, the veil is quite thin.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So there's a lot of transitions and there's a lot of people, there's a lot of moving energy, and that full moon was crazy, but I segued a little bit. So Amanda, great tips and tools. And going back to, what was it? It was something in your chart, not your chart. Look at me. I'm the heart and soul alignment. I want to talk about that, but breaking ancestral patterns. That's what I wanted to talk about. Well, one, describe what that is. So the audience is like, what do you mean ancestral pattern? I was just having this conversation with a friend of mine who's visiting, and we were talking about, I've got 3 daughters, and I know, and I've raised them saying, hey, you picked me. We have a contract. We're doing this, whatever this is. And it can be quite painful, but there are things that and I learned just as much from them as they do from me. Yes, I was put in this earth to be their mother this time, but I'm also learning a lot about myself. And come on, raising 3 girls, help me. Yeah.
So the generational ancestral programming, and I think, like you mentioned, like the veil is so thin. And I think some of this stuff is just maybe like the intensity of the work we had to do in the past. Like it's just all coming up right now. Like we're being so supported in healing this. So don't feel like you have to get off this call and show after you listen and go figure out all these patterns, because it's simply not the case. But it's a very interesting and fascinating subject, because research has gone back and traced. It was 7 years, but then recently I've actually heard it can go back 12 generations. I think it can go back way further. So the way I kind of like to explain these is energetic software programs, if you will. So it's stuff that gets passed down in our energy field, and it can be in the form of memories, events. It's in our cells. It's in our DNA. It's just running in the background. And I've actually found these to be much easier to clear than our own traumas, because it's like they were never really ours in the first place. So when I am in sessions with clients and stuff like this comes up, it's actually usually it's kind of very easy for it to just be let go of, because there's not those attachments to it.
Yeah, the emotional charge, the chemical reactions, because they're like, wait a minute, what's that? Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. So these patterns and programmings, and you can see it even at a foundational level, like families and culture, for example. You see certain cultures behaving in similar ways, or a lot of it around money stuff and love stuff, even in those categories, but down at a deeper level, it's just this energy that's been passed down that you've inherited. And sometimes things present themselves, sometimes they don't. It's kind of, I guess, if you have that nature nurture conversation, but I just think it's a combination of all of it, because we have these, let's say, for example, you had grandfather, great grandfather, they were in the Depression, there was a lot of poverty, and they experienced that. And it was something that was so charged and it was so profound in their life that it almost kind of dictated every aspect of the life. And then they have children, and then that energy signature gets passed down into the cells, into the DNA, into the memory systems. And there's no telling exactly how it's going to show up for each individual person, because there are sometimes certain things don't affect certain people in the same way or
Right.
all the time, but these things get passed down. And then we may have these programmings running in the background and we're like, I don't understand why, like, I can call money in, but it goes out faster than, I can like, get it in my bank account. And there's no really reason for it, but these things can actually be a part of the way we function in the world. And so it's almost like, because we want one mono personality just running the show. And that is, at the end of the day, like our divine essence, our higher self, however you want to label it. And what happens is we get these different parts that they break off from the main personality. So it can be due to trauma. It can be due to different experiences. And so what this does is when we're in like creation mode and we're wanting to create in certain things and call certain things and manifest certain things, we might take 2 steps forward to take 2 steps back because we have these 2 parts fighting against each other. We have these other
gas pedal on, gas pedal on. Yes. Oh yeah.
Exactly.
Please continue. I'm sorry, love. Go.
Yeah, no, that was kind of the end of that thought.
Oh,
but
okay.
It's just one of these things where we can actually use our higher self, which is a field of information. Like if there is something we're wanting to call in and create and identify these patterns and release these at the root, because we want to be, affirmations, all those things are great. But at the end of the day, if we have an identity structure that is the foundation has been built on, we can say all day, I'm abundant. But if we have the identity and the structure that has this deeper stuff and we're not pulling it out at the roots, we're just going to, again, it's just kind of, we're spinning our wheels.
Right.
So.
Right. Walk me through a process with a client, for example.
Yeah. So I love conscious creation, the idea of conscious creation. So for everyone listening to, you're not broken. You don't need to be fixed. That's the first thing I always tell people, because there's, even in the personal development world, there's a lot of things around, like there's, where people are like, oh, you sabotage. I don't truly believe anybody actually wants to sabotage themselves. I think that it's because we have these things going on in the background and the unconscious, that it's like, we're not even fully aware of what we're doing. Like most of us get into a car and we don't think about the, all the things like we did the first time we drove a car that we're, doing, and to get from A to B, we just do it now. Right. Yep. So it's kind of the same thing. And so again, the main thing is you're not broken. You don't need to be fixed. So we get into the creation and that container of what is it that you choose just because you'd love to have it, that heart and soul alignment. That's because I truly don't believe we have those desires for no reason. But we also create or have created resistance. And oftentimes the resistance is just simply, at the time, we were doing the best we could with the tools we had. And we're just trying to keep ourselves safe. There are a lot of people who've experienced immense amounts of trauma, and it's the unconscious, the ego, the whole being, the physical body, the nervous system. Because at the end of the day, if we don't feel safe, like that's foundational. If we don't feel safe, our nervous system's on overdrive. Like we have all kinds of things we have to address so that we can get like even the energetic systems working properly. So we're not in that fight or flight mode. We're actually able to create. So that's kind of step one. But when we get into conscious creation, it's like, okay, what do you choose? What would you love to have? And some of like the main things are just simply a life that you love, like health and vitality. Like we can't do anything in this physical realm without our physical body. We have to cultivate health. So there can be, whatever it is that you want to create, whether it's, you want to call in soulmate love. And so it's choosing what it is and getting into the frequency in the here and now. And because the body and the mind don't actually know the difference between when we're getting into those frequencies, you can create that emotional response and teach your body that it's safe to have it. This is what it feels like. And so you've been there before when it actually shows up in the physical. So the energy work part is simply just releasing the resistance to being able to just flow towards your manifestations, your desires, and take inspired action. And one thing I want to point out is it's just so important to be in the present, right? So we're doing this work, but we're also not like so far into the future that we're not enjoying the now, because then it's like we're putting out those silent instructions that the now is not good enough. But if time actually isn't linear, then we can experience anything we want in the present. And so if we look at it from that perspective, then it kind of shifts that whole piece and we can be present. So the energy work, like I had mentioned, it just depends on what's coming up for that person, but we can use the higher self of that person. One thing I'm super passionate about is empowering people to remember their own greatness. I'm simply a guide. I'm simply a mentor, because it's really about coming back within to who you are and remembering at those deeper levels and layers, like what it is you want to experience in this life. And it's just so powerful when we can start to tap into that a little bit. And I get it. Like I even from the last month and what I went through, like the density comes up. And one thing that really helped me is just knowing that I don't need to search for all these things. It's like, what's showing up right now in this moment for me to be doing?
Or
like
controlling, contracting, right? Yeah.
You don't have to go 10 steps ahead. It's like, what's showing up right now? What's right in front of you to do right now? So, so those are, a couple ways and things that, I do work with my clients on, as far as moving through some of that density, releasing that density through their own connection to God, source, universe, so that they can just take inspired action, because there's also inspired action component. We can't just sit on our couch all day and expect that, the soulmate of our dreams is going to show up. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe he's the Amazon delivery man. I don't know, but, so it's just a combination of all those things. But once we get to the point to where we're learning that we're like little human magnets, and we're conscious creators, we're a unique expression of God, of source. And then it's like, we just can, again, going back to what I mentioned earlier about releasing the density, releasing all the lies, all the stories, because those things actually just simply aren't you. Those are just things you subscribe to, like I said, maybe to keep yourself safe, or for whatever was going on to get you through. Like that is your perception of, things that were going on in your life. And most times they're picked up when we're younger, when we're children. And so we actually, we can simply just release those and embody more of who we are at that soul level.
Yeah. I can hear the audience going, what do you mean just release them? Just release it. Don't worry about it. Just let it go. I've had this conversation with other colleagues and friends and clients myself. And you've got to release your addiction to what is happening, because whether it's drama, whether it's fear, whatever the adjective is that's happening, you've got to release that. And then they'll say, well, what do you mean? My body's addicted to the chemical that's being released. And I'm like, well, it's proven by science. There's a chemical that's happening in your body. Good, the good chemicals. We want the feel good chemicals happening in the body, not the icky stuff. Yeah. But your body, regardless, your body's addicted to it, because there's a chemical response that's happening when you're in fear, fight or flight. We know that one in a hot second. When you're aroused, the brain's aroused, sexual arousal, whatever, you're getting a chemical reaction. When you work out, you get the endorphins. There's a chemical, neurological, there's a whole mess of things happening. I know for myself, I want the good juice. Do you want the good juice?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I do. Yes. And I don't want people to feel like, oh gosh, like where they're making it sound so easy. I'm not going to lie to you. Like it has been a process. Like,
oh God, yeah.
This is not for the faint of heart. Like, I'm not sitting here pretending like I haven't been in the work. Like I mentioned earlier, like October for me was just, again, but it was like this place of surrender to where I was like, okay, God, I don't have all the answers. Like I clearly, like for me, my core wound was all around abandonment. Like I had this deeply rooted abandonment wound. My parents divorced when I was young, and it continued to show up in every single one of my romantic relationships. I read something the other day that it was like, if you don't heal your childhood wounds, your romantic relationships or your just relationships in general will show them to you and basically be like, here you go.
Keep showing up. Yeah. And I'm like, no, I don't want any of that. Yeah. I know. So, I've said that for years. No, I want to heal.
Yes.
And, drop the bag, the metaphoric and the energy bag, because you're carrying around these bags with you, and you hear people get sick. And we can totally start going into that conversation, because when you're carrying energetic bags and fears and emotions, that's going to manifest into something, into your 3D BODY, right? Something's going to happen. It's inflammation, it's stress. Everybody's inflamed. I mean, we can have that conversation. I know I'm inflamed. I gotta go sweat.
Yeah.
There's a huge conversation around that. All right, Benny, let's take a quick commercial break, and we come back. We're going to keep talking to Amanda. We're going to go a little deeper into soul alignment. We're going to walk more into change, all that kind of juicy stuff. And we come back, I'll let you know how to get a hold of her. She's in California, but I'm guessing that you take clients all over the world.
Oh yeah, I'm all online. Yep.
Love
the Zoom.
Yeah. Energy healing, mindset coach. I feel like I'm talking to myself. I love this conversation.
I love it.
All right, we will be right back. We're going to take a quick commercial break. And I guess I told you all that. We're going to be live on, where are we? Not YouTube World. That's where we're going. We're going to noodle over there. Okay, Benny.
All clear.
Thank you. It's hard because I don't see you. I just see the KK and W. I'm like, all right, he's in the studio. I touch that, but I don't see him. Normally he's sitting there and he's like, okay, let's go. All right, YouTube World. Hello there, everybody. Do you have like Amanda, what I'm asking you is if you've got like a quick mindset hack we can give the YouTubers while we're on commercial break.
Yeah. So let's see. I would say, again, the concept of doing what's right in front of you and what's coming up. So it's like, because there's a lot of even like, we've all heard the term toxic positivity too. So it's like,
totally.
We don't have to pretend like everything's fine. Like, I'm not here to say like, you just need to mindset. Like there's a time and place for everything. And so I would say that's like the biggest thing that I've learned is like honoring where I'm at in the moment, in the present. And not because it's like how we would treat a child. Like if a child is like sad, we're not going to be like, hey, I'll deal with you tomorrow. It's like, no, like we hold space. So it's like how we would hold space for someone that we love, our child, like learning to hold space for ourselves as well. And to allow like whatever is showing up right now. Like, again, we don't have to go digging for this stuff. And so as far as like some of the dense stuff coming up, and then I guess on like the more positive side, like the mindset stuff is really getting clear, like on the things that light up your heart and soul. Like, what are you passionate about? And that may mean going back to like your childhood before you got like conditioned to just basically acquiesce to all the things that we're told we have to do. Like, what is it that brings light into your life? And because a lot of people are actually asking those questions right now.
They don't know. I know when I started this, because mine's trauma and abandonment and all that other shiitake, it's a whole mess of stuff that keeps coming up. And I didn't even know what love felt like, my love. I didn't know how to attract it because I didn't trust what I had had before. So my go-to to enhance or to have that love sensation, that purity, was to go online and find young babies and puppies giggling and licking and laughing. And that right there instantly breaks my heart wide open. So I would build on that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's like the
breath.
switch. It's like, just like breaking, like, because I mean, there's a time to like be in your stuff. And then there's a time to like, okay, like, let's put one foot in front of the other and, take that action and get the positive stuff flowing. And then there's a time when stuff does, like if you're going through a heart-wrenching breakup, that would not be a time to just pretend like everything's okay. Like it's okay to allow the stuff to come up. It's okay to honor your emotions. And then there's a time where
that's really important because there's so many people I know.
I've got to bring you ladies on too.
Okay.
All right, stand by.
Hey, welcome back, Radio World, Podcast World, and YouTubers. We were chatting with Amanda. We're having a really good conversation about staying conscious and also what it was toxic positivity on YouTube. But let's have that conversation so the radio world can hear that because that's important. Meaning, if you're in the heart-wrenching breakup, you don't have to be super positive. You can go into that fear. You can go into crying and feel that pain. What I would like to have and to address and kind of noodle around with us in the audience is there's so many people, and I'm guilty of this as for myself. If you don't feel safe, and if you're not in an environment where you can feel safe or vulnerable, you're going to shut it down. You're just going to keep burying it, keep holding that bag. Let's walk people through that conversation, help them overcome that. Let's drop that bag. Let's be vulnerable. Let's be sad. Let's be upset and not feel shame or guilt because I'm feeling bad, right? It's a cyclical, icky cycle.
Yeah, because when we were kind of chatting about this before the break, but when we hold that stuff inside of our body, those frequencies are in our body. And we'd even kind of touched on like some of the body stuff because everything is layered on top of each other. Like there is no coincidences around if you're having physical body ailments and there's unresolved emotional stuff in your body. So for example, bacteria and viruses resonate with the frequencies of guilt, shame, and unworthy. They are Velcro to one another. And so, people who have a lot of physical body ailments, that always tells me something. And it's all tied together. And so, because again, going back to like, it's just moving energy, and yeah, it feels really crappy sometimes, but, or, depending on what you're going through, like the dense emotions don't feel good, but it's fleeting and then it neutralizes. But there's, again, this is for both men and women, but I feel like even there's like stigma around men crying and being able to, show that vulnerability and open up. And so it's like, okay, stuff it. And a really good example that one of my mentors gave to me was when we have a physical body illness, like we take time off work, right? We are told you can, you sleep and you hang out and you rest. But when we have like an emotional thing come up, it's like, just shove it and like put your big girl pants on, your big boy pants on, and like put one foot in front of the other, and it's fine. Like you need to just like get to work, handle it, or do something to take your mind off it and stuff. But it's like, if you haven't
the art of distraction or denial.
Yes.
Oh
yeah. But it's like, we're human. And I truly don't believe we're going to be doing this deep healing work forever. I really, truly don't believe that. Do I believe we're going to be growing and evolving forever? Absolutely. It's an infinite game. But I do feel that a lot of us came here to break these ancestral cycles and to clear out this trauma, this density. There's even some conversations I've been having around the, reversal of aging and the DNA up leveling. There's like our DNA has been so spliced and messed with. It's like a carbon-based DNA, but like the divine blueprint of a human being is a crystalline strand DNA. And so we are reverse aging, and I do think it's possible. And so with that being said, we're going through like growth pains right now as a collective, as Team Humanity, and we're evolving and growing and releasing all this stuff. And again, like going back to, do I think that we're going to be doing deep trauma work like forever? No, but I think that it's like, it's time to acknowledge these things. And we have a space where maybe we didn't have 10 years ago, where we weren't so connected to do this work and we didn't really understand how to do this work. It's becoming more acceptable. So we have like a space to where it's starting to kind of become the norm, which I love because it's so powerful. It really is.
Well, yes, Amanda, absolutely. I remember years ago when I first launched my original network, my I'm Thankful Network, and stepping into my power. I didn't even know what that looked like. And oh my God, now I'm speaking my truth in front of thousands of people. I don't even know what my truth is. And the whole conversation, I'm just using this as an adjective, the woo-woo conversation. But the conscious evolution has completely changed and evolved. Thank you so much over the last 20 years since I've been doing this. And then for me as well, I love seeing all the masculine coming in, stepping in the rink, showing up and doing the work. So they then too can inspire other men to make those conscious choices as well, and to be vulnerable and to have a safe space to do that.
Yeah, it's happening. It's totally happening right now. Whether it doesn't seem like it or it isn't, like, I truly believe it's happening. And it's just beautiful, because really at the end of the day too, it's about our inner balance of like that feminine and masculine energy. Because when we're imbalanced in one area, like when I was in law enforcement, I didn't even know what it meant to be in my feminine. I was all in my masculine.
Yeah.
And so it's really just this inner balance of like both, and really just getting to the root of what has caused you to not be able to just be in your own essence. Because as kids, most of the time, kids are very their innocence is like palpable. Like you can just like see, like they look at like something so trivial to us, and they're just like, they see like the magic and the magnificence in it.
Yeah.
And so we, again, with like the templates that are in place or have been, it's like we almost squelch that innocence, and we be like, we do the thing where it's like, okay, now you have to go to school and you must sit at this desk and you must raise your hand. Like, we take away all the innocence, all the playfulness. Yeah. And I do feel like a lot of that stuff is falling away. And then it's like, okay, now you go to college and you pick a major and you get a job and you get a mortgage so you can be a slave to the mortgage. Then it's like this modern day slavery template. Like it really is. And it's, that mold is like we've outgrown it. Like it's going away. Like it really is.
I love it. Okay. So, soul alignment, manifestation. There was something that you said a minute ago. So, it was the masculine and feminine. I was having this conversation the other day, and let's bring some awareness into that for the audience and people that are listening. Define what that means, masculine and feminine energy, and how that shows up as a 3D practicality in people's world, so they understand what we're talking about when we say masculine and feminine.
Yeah. So the feminine, at least I'm just sharing from my experience.
Yeah,
I'm not,
perfect.
I don't claim to be like knowing everything here. But the feminine left side of the body, like the feminine's all about like intuition and flow and playfulness. And it's like those very, just like light, vulnerable, like the essence of the feminine. And the masculine is very like action oriented, like that more fiery energy. And, just it's the right side of the body, like just being able to just like step into our truth and take that inspired action. And it's, that very physical, grounded energy. And so when we have an imbalance, as I did, it causes these, I guess, I don't want to say issues, but it causes challenges. So I had shut off my feminine when I was younger, because being in my feminine, I labeled as not safe. I had to be in my masculine to keep myself safe. I had to be like, it was all around, like, again, going back to that conversation around safety and not being able, like there were so many years where like my throat chakra was so closed, like I was not able to like speak my truth. And I was
what
that
does
kid,
that even look like? Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like just that, because it was like, it wasn't that I didn't know, it wasn't that I didn't know who I was. It was just so clouded by all the stuff that I was like, I needed to have this remembrance of who I was.
Yeah.
And so I was even that kid in school where if there was like a project where you had to do like an oral presentation, like I was not having any of that. Like I would like drop the class or whatever.
Oh yeah.
Like terrifying to me.
Oh yeah, totally. Totally. I'm like, no,
Yep.
No.
Because it's our way of keeping ourselves safe, right? Like when it's that kind of stuff is like, oh gosh, well, I'm wide open here and I'm vulnerable and I don't like understand these things. Like I didn't, my power center was all jacked up. Like I didn't, like if someone said something like unkind, it was like, it would wreck my world. Whereas like now I'm just kind of like, okay, cool. Like that's your opinion, whatever.
Yeah.
Like I'm not for everyone.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And then you add, well, it's the safety and then the codependency and I'm a recovering people pleaser and all that other stuff that, all that, because it becomes that people pleaser and the codependent becomes that safety mechanism too. Right. It's keeping us safe because of the environment. Oh God. That's a whole nother conversation.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And
It
I've
is.
learned like with my like abandonment wound. And I do feel like this last month I was getting to the bottom of it. I'm like, I have to have gotten the nucleus. I mean, I don't know what else is there like to cry out possibly, but it would continue to get reflected back to me.
Yes.
From all the significant like people that I date, like those deep soul connections. And it's just so interesting because I see it time and time again with those like soul connections to where you're like, gosh, I've known you before. Like this feels like so familiar. And then you have these dynamics to where it's like, it reflects that back to you. And it's like your deepest fear, because sometimes I feel like our deepest fear isn't even death. It's like these wounds. It's like the death that's a sideshow compared to like the abandonment and the, unworthy and the loss of a job. It's just like
raising 3 girls.
Yeah. It's so interesting and fascinating to like talk about, and because it's so true. And I see it time and time again in myself and other people. I'm like, I don't think my worst fear is even death.
Oh, no. That's actually a vacation.
Right.
Yeah. It really, I mean, and I talk to dead people all the time. So it's not, and I know what that world is. So it's not, I'm like, because I have a completely different take on the death of the human body, because I speak to those that have crossed over, and I've been, that energy and that frequency for years. So living in our 3D world, and that contrast of white, black, purple, orange, cold, hot, sharp, soft, whatever the adjective is that you want to bring up, the abandonment versus love or acceptance versus, all of that. It's that contrast. That's why we're here, because we have a soul's contract that we're here to be learning and to be evolving. That doesn't mean bigger, better, or greater. That's just an evolution and an expansion of energy. It doesn't mean I'm any bigger, better, or greater. It doesn't mean Amanda is, or anybody that's been doing this work. We're just here to be the conduit and to offer the education and the information. And the audience knows with here and what I talk about, it's new perspective, new thoughts, new ideas. It's a new you. It's like you 2.0. We're just giving you the information. So audience, and to those listening later, if there was something in here that kind of was a thorn in your tush, or there's that squeaky wheel, something's questioning, your soul's essence is saying, hey, let's go look at that. Let's go take a look at that.
That's right? That's why we question those things. And I want to point something out that you had mentioned, because we were talking about, like the contrast, right? Oh. And like those division templates, when we have the charge around those, at least how I've come to understand them, is when I have that charge around like the person leaving, or even what's going on in the world, and I'm feeling charged, and it's like at the end of the day,
triggered, whatever
activated,
it is.
upset,
Yeah.
If I'm feeling those sorts of things around that, it's like, okay, where am I actually not at peace and unity within myself? Because all of these things, and I mean, this is another rabbit hole that, is for another time, but just like the things, again, we talk about the conditioning and, the things that have been put in place on this planet to create this division and all these things, again, with like even just race and politics and all these things. It's like, that actually keeps us further and further away of it's like that illusion of we're focusing on like the thing that actually isn't the thing. When it comes back to that like peace and unity within, then it's like almost like the other stuff doesn't exist. Like the stuff going on in the external world, half the time I feel like I live in a bubble, because I'm like, I don't feel anything towards it. It's so weird. And I couldn't say that 6 months ago. I was charged as hell about stuff, but I couldn't. At this point, I'm like, I just am so neutral. I'm like, this is actually kind of weird, but I'm like, I'm going to go with it because it feels better than being charged.
Yeah.
And upset about it.
And then you tick people off because you're not having an emotional reaction. You're not being triggered.
Yeah.
And it goes back to, and again, triggered is all about the person being triggered. It's not the individual triggering you. They're not. That the trigger, whatever that is, it's all your responsibility. It's you showing up and taking accountability and responsibility for how you are responding, being triggered, whatever that's happening, because it's something in you that's being triggered, not the other person. They may have said it to show you the mirror so you can bring it up. And I like having this conversation because there's so many times, and maybe you have had this experience. Why are you triggering me? Why are you pushing my buttons like that? And it's not. It's you had the experience, meaning maybe you and I, Sue and Amanda, are having this conversation. You had the experience. It's in your body from 5 years ago. You're being triggered because of something that I'm showing you. I'm not purposefully doing it. And then you have to stand in that space and hold space and have that conversation of, no, that wasn't me. You want to have that conversation. Do you want to unpack that? You want to drop that bag?
Yeah.
We kind of totally went on a different rabbit hole, but
yeah, I think it's important though. It's super important. And I feel that I'd heard the term like the mirrors and all that so many years ago. And I was like, okay, I didn't quite understand it the way I understand it now, to where obviously I do not condone any type of like abuse or any of that. That's a totally different conversation, right? Like like, we're not talking about that kind of stuff. We're talking about when we're in our unconscious, and when an event, something happens and it causes us to feel some sort of way, I've come to, as like crazy as it may sound, I'm like, okay, this is kind of a gift. It's shining the flashlight, it's shining a light on. I'm like, it's kind of like, it's kind of like an undesired gift, but it's like, if I can then lessen the, like if I can get that, release that out of my body just by having presence and awareness, if like that's just even a level. Cause not everybody, like I would think that people even listening to the show, you have the awareness, you're doing the work, and you have the awareness to be able to be like, hey, look, something doesn't feel right. Like, let me just actually, instead of reacting, let me just pause for a moment and let me just feel like what I'm feeling even inside my body. Like, do I have a lump in my throat? Like, am I feeling some sort of like heavy vest on my chest? Like, am I feeling something in my hips? And just even bringing an awareness oftentimes neutralizes it and allows the release of our need to be exerting our ego and our unconscious over it. And I'm getting chills as I say this, because it just shifts the entire thing, because then you're actually like, okay, like I'm in my own empowered space. And I'm like, just seeing this from a different perspective. And sometimes all we have to do is see it. We don't have to change it. We don't have to fix it. We don't have to solve it. It's just like, okay, cool. And then a couple minutes later, you're like, all right, cool. Now I can go about my day and I don't feel that anymore.
Right. Yeah. So I love this conversation. So my niche, and I have spent years overcoming my own shiitake, overcoming and creating my mindset. And my niche, my specialty is creating, whether it's energy healing, whatever the modality is, it's real life, real time, practical mindset tools and hacks to self-regulate. And going back to what we were talking about, you first have to have the awareness that you're even being triggered and standing in that. And that's brave work. I think you will that is huge brave work. And we talked about this at the top of the hour. It's not really for the faint of heart. You're going to jump in, find some people to help you with those life preservers.
But I think we chose it too at the end of the day, because I truly think we could have incarnated 100 years down the line, when I do think we're on the cusp of this golden age. Like, this is like, your soul means business.
Now is the time. There's this huge conversation that's been happening. Things have been, it's like that percolating.
Like, I truly believe if you're here right now listening to this, you wanted to be a part of this journey and this shift. You didn't want to show up when we were all, on the beach having a good time here. Which is coming. I truly think it's coming. We're going to, we're creating some magic, but
create magic. We've got a couple more minutes here. Remind people how they can get a hold of you, how they can work with you, Miss Amanda, and then we can end it in, we're at 52. So we've got about 5 more minutes or something like that.
Yeah. My website is just my name, amandamonnier.com. And I have some freebies on my website, like a couple different, I do have one I have an immune system healing recode on there. So it's all about like health and vitality, but we go through like some clearing of some stuff. And I know a lot of people are experiencing physical symptoms and things like that. So yeah. So
Yeah.
I do one-on-one sessions for now. I'm in the process of, my business partner and I are actually, we're wanting to just impact as many people as possible. So we're starting a masterclass to where, so kind of I do a variety of modalities that's kind of all into one. So it's, I haven't put a label on it, but there's like I use a recode on some of it. So it's like kind of around like rewiring the brain and the energy field. So we're going to be doing those on our masterclass, as well as other energy work. I do energetic allergy healing. So that's all around like a lot of the physical body stuff, because we can have an allergy to actually anything. It's just us not being in harmony with whatever it is.
And then adding inflammation, all the conversation.
Yeah. So the details on my masterclass will be coming out here pretty soon, but that'll all be, on my social media and my website. I'm not a huge social media person, but I have like an Instagram and stuff like that. So, but my door is always open. Like, I'm just so passionate about helping people, and, wherever you're at, like sometimes it's a time to do the inner work alone, and sometimes it's the time to reach out for help. So it's like honoring wherever someone's at in their journey. And, some days I'm like, I need help, so.
Oh yeah.
Just, it's always like, I always tell people, like, just trust like your gut, your heart. And if you don't know like what that is, like you do deep down, you really do know, like at the end of the day, like we know what's best for us. And it's just like, sometimes even just dropping into your heart and just bringing your focus and energy into your heart, it bypasses all the mental chatter. And then you actually do have more of a direct channel to your higher self, to your soul, to all that wisdom, because it's innate, it's within you. And it's just all the other stuff, all the fuzziness, like all the static that sometimes clouts that. And you can really just make the choice and even ask for help, like whatever your guidance system is. Again, like God, source, universe, like your higher self. Like there have been plenty of times where I'm just like, again, like I don't have all the answers and I need help. I need guidance. Like I don't know like what the right next step is. And sometimes maybe that's just doing nothing at the moment. And so it's just like you really starting to trust yourself and use, everyone's intuitive. So I refer to it as like an intuition muscle, like we would train at the gym, right? Like we get better at it and we get more that muscle memory, and like we get more confidence when we do things like, and just start to really even just starting to trust yourself again, because it's just important to have that foundation. Because when we look to all the external stuff, to everybody else to give us those answers, again, like support and help are great, but then it's like, but what do you want? What do you think? What do you believe? Like what lights you up? Like coming back to that fundamental foundational question. And that's really, again, what heart and soul alignment is all about. And bringing it kind of full circle is just that going within and really just cultivating that within yourself and reaching out along the way if you need help. So.
Absolutely. And Amanda can do that. I can help too. New perspective, new thoughts, new ideas, and new you. This has been a juicy, yummy conversation. What are you thankful for?
Oh man. Well, right now I'm looking at my dog. He is actually my dog's his name is Buddy, and he's 4, and he's just, I'm so thankful for him. Like every time, like I look at him, my heart opens and it just feels so expansive, and he's just gotten me through some very emotional times. And so I am so thankful for my dog, as cliche as that might be. Like he really is just like my family. So.
Oh, I'm with you on that one. I've got mine, my Levi. And he's right here, and he's like, come on, Mom, let's go run.
Right.
I want to go smell and do my thing. All right. With all of that, you guys, Amanda, this has been an absolute treat. I love having this conversation, energy healing, all of the modalities, just bring it all in, and bring it into your heart, show love, have the CCs in life, something I've coined. It's compassionate curiosity. Get compassionate and get curious with yourself and the other party. And it takes that sting, it takes that charge out of it. Yeah. I will have all this information on my social media about getting a hold of Amanda. If you'd like to join her masterclass, talk to her, go to her website, all that stuff is going to be listed in the newsletter and of course in social media as well. And I think that's it. Benny, thank you so much. Amanda, thank you very much.
Thank you
And
so much. It's been amazing.
yes, it has. Thank you. All right. Until next week, you guys, each of you are a gift. Get out there and share yourself with the world.